right, so it's another busy Friday, although you may be watching this on some other day, on some other month, in some other year. We take the time every Friday, most Fridays, to sit down and have a conversation about Medicare on this, the insurance life, and everything in between podcasts. So you might be listening to us and not seeing us, which is pretty cool as well. If you're doing that right now, follow. I don't know how to tell you how else to do it. Just find the follow button and click
subscribe. Subscribe, right? If it's a podcast, it's still subscription.
If you're on looking at us right now, hi, subscribe. If you don't like what you're seeing, hit this button. That's fine too. Any form of interaction is good interaction. If you really like what you see, share it in a Facebook group because I've got Donald Trump out of most of them anyway. But hey, we'd appreciate getting the information out to others. Nick, today we're talking about how to win in 2024 when it comes to Medicare, and even a couple of good self-sabotage ways to absolutely F up your year. How does that sound for today's topic du jour?
I enjoy coming on every Friday and being surprised at the wackiness of our topics. Let's do it.
So do you want to talk how to win first or how to make sure you don't win first?
Let's go with wins. Let's start off on a positive note. I think you just told me that our last couple of episodes have been a little bit negatively focused. So let's try and stay a little bit positive. So ways to win. So I don't know. I think about this and I think of things in terms of like goal setting for the year, right? We're in 2024. It's January. Well, when we're recording this, it's still fairly early in January, but it might not be by the time it gets out. It's the release schedule on this, I think, is actually going to put this in February. But whatever, who cares? New Year's resolutions, they're in the air. Are you resolving to yourself? Do better in 2024 than you did in 2023. There are a lot of people out there who will say that New Year's resolutions are crap and they don't do anything for you. But there's like a lot of scientific evidence that shows that having a temporal marker, like the beginning of a new year, really does change your headspace a little bit. And if you set yourself some realistic goals to accomplish over a very specific period of time, that as long as they're specific and they're actionable, you should do better than if you were to set them at like some weird random time of the year. So let's talk about, like, I guess, setting goals. I think is the way to like make sure that you win. Like you got to know what you're trying to accomplish. What is winning? Let me ask you that question, Chris. In 2024, what does winning in the Medicare space look like?
Well, to me, at the most basic level, I think winning means doing incrementally more than last year.
Okay.
Not winning would be like in neutral or going backwards. Obviously, you'd have lost the basketball game if you didn't score more points than the other team. But I just want to do a little bit more at minimum than I did last year. Partner with a few more agents, get a few more agents to their full capacity, increase Medicare volume, maybe increase the type of Medicare companies we work with. Like, I have to show a market improvement from what happened last year to this year to, at the most global level, say I won this year.
Okay. And for most of the people that are watching this, they're mostly going to be saying, hey, for me, that's going to be production goals, right? That's going to be, I made more money this year than I made last year, which honestly, if you're selling Medicare and you can retain your book and you can maintain your production from the previous year, you will make more money this year than you made last year. Yeah. Like that's just how it works, right? If you can write the same number of people as you wrote last year and not lose anybody, you will double what you made the previous year. Boom, that's math. So maybe even more than double, honestly, because of the way that proration works. So that's a place to start. Like, take a look at what you did last year and say, hey, what was working? Like, take the positive attitude. Like, what was working for me last year? What was I doing right? Figure it out. Write it down. Be specific. You know, what you were doing right was not writing, 300 apps in the course of a year. That was not what you were doing right. That is the outcome of some things that you were doing right. What you were doing right was maybe buying leads. What you were doing right was maybe giving one seminar presentation a week to a new group of people. What you were doing right was maybe making 5 phone calls a day to your existing book of business that doesn't have Medicare. And touching base with them and offering to a Medicare review with them. These are specific things that you could potentially have been doing right all year last year. Sending out thank you cards. I don't know. Whatever you were doing, what's the stuff that you were doing that was working? You know what you were doing that was working.
Do you feel like, though, that the problem is that many agents, personal producers, ground level type folks don't look at it as if it was really a business? And they're more, especially in our venue, final expense agents transitioning into or doing both Medicare. They see it in a very granular capacity because we're selling a one-call close. We're buying the lead, knocking the door. It's hard to see what you're doing in a big global business type fashion, I think.
Well, yeah, sure. But I think that's part of the reason why it's really important that you engage in some self-reflection and keep it positive, right? Like maybe last year didn't go as well for you as you wanted it to. But unless you sold absolutely nothing last year, I mean, maybe, but unless you sold zero, you were doing some things right. Now, maybe you were not doing nearly enough things right, but you won't know that until you sit down and you take a look and you engage in some self-reflection and see where you're starting from. What were things that you were doing that were good? And then how can you maintain continuing to do those? We'll get on to adding on it later, but like you got to start by continuing the stuff that works. You know, we have big believers for years now, prior to this show, telling people all the time, go buy leads. Please go buy leads. I cannot tell you anymore. Go buy leads. Don't buy not direct mail leads. Go buy leads. You've got yourself a short. If you're doing that and you're buying leads every week and you're doing direct mail drops every single week, that's a good thing. You will do well if you continue to do that. If you continue to call those leads that you get, because weirdly, not everybody does. If you get those leads and then you call them every single one of them, multiple times, try and get them all to answer the phone, you will do well. You know, that's kind of your baseline. That's where you should be starting off as your base.
I want to take a moment and unpack self-reflection because I can remember self-reflecting on 2022 compared to 2021 about a year ago. And it was uncomfortable. Like I totaled up all of the money that I made, which is still a lot of money. Thank God for this industry or whoever you pray to. It's a lot of money, but it wasn't as much money as the year prior. And one could look at that and say a year ago, like we're talking year and 2 years ago at this point, one could say you didn't do good. You failed. You whatevered. But there were a lot of things that went right in that year, a lot of building blocks that were created, a lot of results that will show themselves in this year. So I think a lot of people don't self-reflect because they're afraid that maybe it isn't going to be as good as they wanted it to be. But I'll tell you, I did it. I didn't die from doing it. And it actually provided a lot of good things as a result.
I think it's the single most important thing that you can do. And right now, at the beginning of the year, you got a clean slate. I guess AEP is technically the clean slate, but like it's January. This is a great time to be doing this sort of thing.
Let's talk about
take a look at it.
Yeah. Actionable ways to help win. You did some self-reflection. You looked over your numbers. You checked your accounts. You totaled up your stuff. Now that I've got all this self-reflection finished, had a Zen moment, crossed my legs, took a puff. Everything's great now.
Yeah.
How can I actionably win this year? Should I increase marketing, increase my focus? Like, give me some actionable tips I can take into the field so that I can actually win this year.
Activity is everything. I firmly believe, to the core of my very being, that the number one single most important thing that every salesperson, not even just insurance agents, anybody working in sales, in any of sales, the single most important thing that you can do is track the number of complete sales presentations that you give in any given day, any given week, and any given month. That is the only thing that matters. Because it's the only thing you can really, really, really control. You can't control what your lead returns look like. You can't control how many people show up to a seminar. You can't control how many people will be in a position for you to be able to help them when they agree to review their Medicare. You can't control how many people are going to say yes, even if you're in a position, right? They might be having a bad day. Their dog died. Their kid got into a fight with them, whatever. You don't have control over these external factors, but what you have control over is your activity. And it is a cliche, but it is so very, very true. You know, if you have the activity, you will write the application. If you are out there, let's say you're a final expense agent. I'm going to talk to any of the agents who are working with me directly. If you're out there selling final expense policies and you are not giving a minimum of 12 final expense presentations a week, you're doing it wrong. Figure out a way to give 12. Because you're doing it wrong if you're not giving at least 12. And that is 12 presentations where you have sat down and said, okay, this is the company I'm recommending for you, and this is how much it's going to be. I think you should sign on the line right here. Right? If you didn't get that far,
it wasn't a presentation.
It wasn't a presentation. If their husband and wife aren't both there, it wasn't a presentation. You know, if you up and they immediately turned around and kicked you out, it wasn't a presentation. Those don't count.
No. Nick, I think though that I wouldn't believe that if I didn't start this business in full brute force effort mode. Like I wasn't good at the sales stuff. I came from a paramedic environment where my job was to get you to the hospital, ideally alive, not like warm up, build rapport, and get your bank account. So a lot of like the nuances of the business took a lot of learning, but I knew how to work hard, and I would sure as heck see 10, 12, 15, 20 people a week and give that presentation, do the activity, and see the results. But I also know plenty of really good humans that at the end of the week have very little to show production-wise. And I just have to believe, because I'm not in the car with them or whatever, that it really is an activity issue, as uncomfortable as that is to say.
I don't know, even if you're really, really, really best, and maybe you're really bad at this.
I wasn't very good to start.
Right. But if you're like terrible at this, let's like, if you sit with 12 individuals who have sent in a lead and you can't close at least 3 out of 12, 25% close rate of your presentations, not your total leads, 25% close rate of your presentations. That is awful.
There's something wrong.
But if you're selling 3 a week, you're going to make money at this business.
Or at least survive the next week.
Right. You're going to be fine if you can close 3 a week.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know how you can sit with 12 and not close 3. I don't know how you can sit with 12 and realistically not close 6. And if you're closing 6 a week, you're doing better than most people in this business. So then you have to actually talk to those people about Medicare also. You have to offer to do a review. You have to tell them, hey, I want to talk to you about your Medicare. This is another thing that we do. Let's get a scope of appointment signed. Let's set up another appointment. And and again, if you're closing 6 and you're just talking to the people that you closed, forget everybody that said no. Like if you're closing 6, again, I don't know how 3 of the 6 people that you have sold life insurance to don't say, yes, I do want to talk to you about my Medicare. Realistically, all 6 of them should say yes. But again, maybe you suck. I don't know how 3 of those people don't. And then you are giving 3 Medicare presentations a week, in addition to any other activity that you're doing. This is just on picking up the people that you've just sold final expense to. And you're giving 3 Medicare presentations a week, and you're closing maybe 2 of those a week. That's 100 apps a year, guys. That's $30,000 extra dollars.
I think the issue is that there's also people watching, listening, hopefully that see this, that I keep saying to them, now is the freaking time to get licensed, to become ready to sell, to pick up one decent product in your market and start. What do you have to say to somebody to get to the point where they realize if they don't start doing this, they're going to be banging doors and rewriting Miss Betty for the 9th time? And
I've been selling final expense insurance for a very long time. I have a lot of final expense clients who are active on my books. I have a lot of final expense clients who are active on my books. I have a lot of final expense premium that is active on my books. And I focused on carriers who pay high renewals. Like half of my clients, I'm getting like an 8+% renewal on. I make in renewals, I make more than your average school teacher makes, but like less than your average school administrator makes. Like I don't make enough in renewals that if I was to stop working, I could maintain my lifestyle from final expense renewals. It would be ugly. Like I would be losing, oh gosh, 4/5 of my income easily if ad was final expense renewals to live off of, and I stopped everything else and I lost all my other renewal base. I would be easily losing 4/5 of my income.
And then not to mention the final expense renewals hit a plateau. A good Peter Walker plateau told me this, I don't know how many years ago. Even at a high volume of production, like what you sell and I sell, you're going to plateau at a certain point based off of mortality, lapse ratios, any number of different reasons. It's never going to get past this point. And then if you stop, it precipitously will go down from that point.
Yeah, it's at about 5 years. At years out between mortality and other factors, like even if you have good persistency, like I have very good persistency. My persistency, my 10 years, like I just calculated this because go back and watch the episode that we did with Adam a couple of weeks ago. But like I just calculated my total overall persistency lifetime across all of my carriers. I'm at like 82% persistency for my entire book of business, all $2.5 million plus of final expense premium that I've ever written. I'm at like 82% persistency.
Does that include Gerber?
Yeah, it include no, actually, I bet you it doesn't include Gerber.
Oh,
I don't think I was counting Gerber. I don't know that I went and pulled Gerber's numbers. That's a good question. I don't think I did.
I think you can.
But like 13-month persistency, I'm talking like 10-year persistency. That's pretty high. That's still like not great, you know? And it is going to keep dropping because people are going to die. Like I'm writing people who are in their 70s.
They die.
I have multiple that I wrote who were reasonably young for final expense people who are in their 90s now.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's the thing. All of your clients are going to die. Like all of them.
All of them.
All of
100%.
them.
100% of clients are going to die.
Crazy.
But with Medicare, like I said, if you're writing 2 a week, you're making $30,000 a year. 2 a week this year is $30,000. You add an additional $30,000 a year next year. So if you do 2 a week for 2 years, you're making $60,000 guaranteed. You do 2 a week for 3 years, you're making $90,000 guaranteed. You do 2 a week for 4 years, you're making $120,000 in renewals every year, guaranteed for as long as those people stay on your book of business. 4 years worth of work, just doing 2 a week. 2 a week is not many. Like I said, if you're closing 5-6 people of final expense a week and you only ask those people, I don't know how you don't write 2 a week. If you're actually legitimately asking every person that you close on a final expense sale. And that is not the only way that you can be generating business if you are a final expense agent looking to transition into Medicare. You know, you can then go through and call your, I don't know, 1,000, 600, 500, however many final expense clients you have that you've never offered Medicare to. Go through and call them. Write another 1 or 2 a week. Like I had an agent this last AEP who has never made any attempt prior to AEP to write any Medicare business. This was his very first P where he was trying to write Medicare business. And all he did was take a look at where his leads were going to be that week, go through his existing final expense book of business, pull up every person that was in that area where his new leads were, and call them and say, hey, Betty, I'm going to be in your neighborhood on Monday. We're doing Medicare now. I'd love to come and review your Medicare. He wrote 60 people in AEP. He'd never done it before. Never done any Medicare sales before.
That's incredible.
Like, and that's all he did.
That's incredible.
He didn't buy any extra leads. He didn't ask anybody post sale. He did nothing else.
Let me ask another question, because as much is important, I think there's also ways to self-sabotage a year and not even realize it. Because oftentimes we self-sabotage ourselves in moments of emotional frustration, in moments of anger, in moments you're not processing things logically. Self-sabotage with shiny objects. Like, I feel like the newest shiny object online is business-to-business insurance, which I can't imagine pays anything very quickly. Talk to me about shiny objects.
Jesus. Okay, so I got my start in business to business insurance, sorta, kinda weird. Like I bounced around and did a lot of things at the very in like the first 2 years of my career. I was a captive agent for an insurance company, and they had a model that was similar to like the Aflac model. And so one of the things that I attempted with them was business to business insurance sales and like group enrollments. And man, it can be a good business if you are like the pipeline and you have the ability to get in, but you are spending a lot of time cold calling HR representatives to try and get in. You are spending a lot of money on leads, or somebody else is buying those leads for you. And leads in that space are weird. It's so much relationships and referrals. It's an entirely different business model. Like you're doing an entirely different job. It is as different from what we do as final expense and Medicare agents working business to consumer individually as like sales is to what we do. Like it's an entirely different thing. Like going and selling software as a service, right? Like if that's the plan that you're going to go down, like I guess, yeah, sure, it's a world. And you
You're
cannot do
basically
that and this.
you're
You
basically closing your simplified issue rush, and you're opening up a factory now. Like totally
yeah,
different business. Close the other one, open something new.
yeah.
Very different.
You can't do them together. They don't, because they both require 100% of your effort. And it's just not a thing that you can do both of those. You can't both be a business to consumer person and a business to business person. The ACA, good to have the ability to write ACA, because sometimes you're going to write a husband who's turning 65 and his wife is going to be dropping off of his insurance, and she's only like 61 and she can't get on Medicare yet. And like, hey, it's nice if you can help her out instead of having to send her to like the marketplace or whatever. Great. Yeah, that stuff happens. Occasionally somebody will say, hey, my kid needs something, whatever. Like it's fine. Like that's great. Getting involved ACA heavily is a distraction. It's a different business model. It's a different thing. Keeping persistency and maintaining everything is your job at that point. Your whole focus becomes maintaining your book of business, because it's so easy to add people to your book of business. But it's equally easy to lose people from your book of business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shiny objects out there. If you're going to be doing this,
Do this.
commit to doing this. Mutual friend John Duggar likes to quote somebody, and I don't remember who it is. I think it's a college basketball coach, but he says, what is the main thing? Like, make the main thing the main thing.
Article once about a non-for-profit organization in Philadelphia. Former firefighter, now current firefighter, resigned from the department and was doing basically emergency pet care, where they'd respond to a fire, they'd take care of the pets. Great business idea. No business money involved, nonprofit. But when it failed, or when she exited that and went back to the fire department, she published an article, and she said one of the reasons it didn't work, and I'm paraphrasing, is mission creep. Like they tried to do too many different things for too many different places for too many different people, and they creeped off of the main mission. So that again fortifies what you're saying. What we're saying is that the shiny objects not only can cause you to lose this year, can cause you to lose a lot more than you realize at that surface level when it looks so shiny.
I mean, let me ask you, Chris, if you went to your doctor and your doctor said, hey, by the way, Chris, not only am I a doctor, I sell insurance, I sell real estate, and I can get you involved in some Mary Kay cosmetics, would you continue seeing that doctor?
No, I mean, like, just for the fact that he doesn't have the time to do any of those things good.
If you went to your CPA and your CPA was like, we're not just a CPA firm, you'll get me, your CPA, and you'll also get me, who's going to be your stockbroker, and you're going to get me, who's selling you your insurance, and you're going to get me, who's going to help sell you a house. Would that be a CPA that you would trust?
No.
Right? Like there's a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I got another one for you. You go into Applebee's, and all of a sudden they're also selling books.
Right.
It's weird. Why is there books here? I'm gonna have a milkshake. What that's happening?
I feel like because the barrier to entry to getting an insurance license is so low. I feel like there are a lot of people that get into this business with the idea that this is the same type of thing as like selling Mary Kay. Nothing against selling Mary Kay, man. I know personally like a top salesperson for Mary Kay and loves her life, but it's not the same thing. This is a white collar professional job, and we are not taken seriously as an industry on the same level that CPAs, lawyers, doctors are taken seriously. Stockbrokers even. What's the difference between us and a stockbroker? Nothing. There's no difference between us and a stockbroker. Stockbrokers get a ton more respect than we do as being white collar professionals. And it is because of the way that we treat ourselves. We do this. We don't specialize. We don't become experts in our field. And we end up going all over the place and chasing shiny objects and going after that next dollar. And it feels like a get rich quick scheme because so many of the people who get into the industry but like from fake scammy get rich quick type of people. And this is my soapbox for the year is like we have to of our industry turn our industry into a well-respected white collar profession and not some scammy multi-level marketing scheme. I mean, it's important.
Well said. We got 4 minutes left. It's time for our hot take. What we do at the end of every episode is I throw something off the cuff at Nick and see how he takes it. But before we get to that, like, comment, subscribe, and follow. One of my personal goals for this year is to grow this channel at least another 200 subscribers. And it's going to take you liking, commenting, following, and sharing this content. So YouTube says, oh, look at that cool shit over here. And it shows it to more people. Nick, are you ready for today's hot take?
I don't know how it get any spicier than it already is. Let's go.
Agents need to report agents. Clients can never do anything wrong. And all my clients who are accidentally switched and disenrolled from the perfect plan I picked for them, I need to invest time in reporting that agent and damn anything else I had on my list for the day.
No, not damn anything else you had on your list for the day. That is a bad call. That is part of that shiny object syndrome. Be focused on the thing that you're focused on. We should, as an industry, be holding each other accountable. There are bad actors out there who should be reported to the FCC or CMS or whoever the right appropriate agency is, depending on what they did. These are all true. You should be able to help your client make those reports if they're not going to make them, and it is valid and warranted. Department of Insurance, whoever. This is all true. Do not confuse what is essentially a replacement strategy, right? What is essentially firing the other agent and making the client distrust the other agent so that they will trust you instead, which is, I mean, say what you want about that strategy. It is a strategy that is out there that people use. Don't confuse that as being the same thing as a need to go run and report every single person who's ever done anything wrong. You don't. A lot of agents screw stuff up just because they don't know any better. The level of training in this industry is not great. It's unfortunate. But a lot of agents screw stuff up because they don't know any better. That does not make them acting in a malicious fashion.
And just simply losing your client because somebody else serviced the client is also not criminal in a sense.
No, but
client disenrolling because they got involved in another sales scenario is not criminal either.
No.
Like, go ahead.
Let me give you an example of something that just happened to me recently, and I have a very good relationship with almost all of my clients, and so I got a phone call about this from my client. But she called me up and she said, "Hey Nick, I'm very worried. I just got told I'm going to be losing my Medicaid in 2024. I need to know what to do." And I went out and I sat down with her and I said, "Okay, listen, this is what the timeline is. If you're going to lose your Medicaid at all, it's not happening until May. These are the steps that we're putting in place. You're not going to have to do anything right now. Your current carrier is going to let you stay on your DSNP until April. We've got time to get this done, fill out this paperwork, send it in. I think you still qualify for Medicaid. We just need to keep you in the system and recertifying. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it." Over the Christmas holiday break, she got talking to one of her friends and talking about how worried she was that she was going to be losing her Medicaid. And so on January 3rd, her friend sent her Medicaid agent over to my client's house. Her Medicaid agent, her Medicare agent, "Oh, hey, you're going to be losing your Medicare. Let's get you off that DSNP that they're going to be taking you off of and put you into a non-DSNP plan that's going to be somewhat benefit rich. And we'll get that taken care of for you." And my client, being kind of scared, was like, Okay, let's do that. Signed all the paperwork, and then like immediately turned around and called me to tell me what she did and said, "Hey, I just wanted to make sure I did the right thing." I am somewhat frustrated by this situation, but that other agent didn't necessarily do anything wrong. She was trying to win a client. Now, she did not dig deeply into my client's situation. She didn't really understand what the situation was, or that she wasn't going to actually have to lose her Medicaid as long as she filed her recertification paperwork, um, or all of that kind of stuff, and that she didn't need to leave her DSNP until April, that she had several months where she could have been collecting a healthy food card, which she has now had shut off, and other things like that. And we are in the process of unwinding it. That agent didn't do anything criminal. I'm not reporting that agent to the Department of Insurance. That agent was sloppy. That agent was bad for my client, but she didn't do anything that warrants a report. I know there are agents out there who would report somebody like that to the Department of Insurance. And honestly, when it comes to this whole like we need to be white collar professionals thing, that stuff doesn't help.
No, tattletaling over just losing clients is really just makes us look like a bunch of kindergartners.
And it undermines it when we actually have to report somebody for actually doing something unethical.
Mm.
I've reported people because they've forged signatures on documents for my clients. That's real. That stuff happens. Those are the people we want being prosecuted. And if we're reporting every single person out there doing anything wrong that does anything to harm us, it undermines that.
Well said. Well, we appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. One more time, comment and subscribe, share this out, get this information into the hands of those that need it. The buttons are over here. They might be over here. They might be right here, wherever they are. Here is your opportunity to smash down on the like button, subscribe. And if you see us in the short section, I see myself in the short section sometimes. That's pretty strange.
It's like, weird.
Whoa, hold, like it. Even if it's you liking you, like the shorts the same way that you like our content, because that helps promote this to others as well. Appreciate you being here today. Appreciate Nick taking the time for us today, and we'll all see you next week.